The night of April 8th, 2018, I was in my home in Richmond when I heard gunshots coming from the Manor, a nearby apartment complex. I was pretty used to this sound, but this time felt different. This was the most shots I'd ever heard at one time. I lost count after a few seconds. I even got on the ground out of fear and confusion. A few days later, I was reporting on a vigil for crime survivors. I met Monifa Akosua, whose brother Mazari was hit by one of the bullets from that night. I wrote this brief article after our meeting. And at the time, I didn't realize how much their story symbolizes a growing movement.
In my community, it's just normal. Like when you hear shots, you immediately just feel like it's somebody you know. And it makes you want to, run outside. It's this feeling in the pit of your stomach that it could be somebody you know, right? So that time, I felt like it was somebody I knew.
You want to go this way or?
Yeah, where's where you? I walk with you. Damn, that's crazy. I ain't even been over there since it happened.
I was at a barbecue for one of my friends, and we were over here at Booker T, Anderson Park, and we were just enjoying ourselves, We went over to the Manor to just chill, I looked to the left, and then I got shot right here. So I remember when I was in the hospital, and they put me in a CAT scan to I don't know what they did, but I don't remember anything after that.
One of the friends put him in a car and drove to Kaiser, like instantly. Like soon as he got shot, they picked him up and put him in a car. Like so nobody called 911. Like it was ASAP.
How do you feel now, kind of being back here and hearing Monifa recap and just being back in the environment? I'm wondering what is that like for you right now?
I've been back here, but it's kind of different now that I'm on camera.
What do you think? Besides the fact that there's a camera here, what do you think?
I don't really care.
About what happened?
Yeah.
When did you get to that point where you were just kind of like, whatever?
I say just now.
Marzari was one of 5 young men shot in Richmond within 2 weeks. And while the number of shootings in the city has gone down since a spike in 2009, many are walking around with scars.
I was running towards the store where they was actually shooting at the doorway, and I just kind of dived into the store, and my legs was outside of the store, so I ended up getting shot. One bullet went through my ankle, and I got shot 3 times in my thigh area on my left leg. It was traumatizing, but just growing up in a community and just being the norm, right? The abnormal just became the norm to me. And I remember actually going back to that same very store a week later.
Shootings and drug dealing traditionally come with mandatory prison sentences. Some say this is a deterrent for would-be offenders and a form of justice for crime survivors. However, this also paints perpetrators and victims as 2 completely separate groups. One group has to be protected, the other one punished. But this narrative left out people like LaDamian, survivors of crime who are also caught up in the criminal justice system.
In my younger years, in order for me to be able to survive, I sold drugs. So I wasn't a bad kid. Grew up in a neighborhood that was heavily impacted by lack of resources, violence, gun violence, over-policing.
So with that experience, would you say that you were impacted by, some people call it a theory, for some people it's their real lives, but were you impacted by like mass criminalization, mass incarceration? Do you think your story is a part of this larger narrative?
Hell yeah, I would have went to prison. I would have went to prison because I had already had a strike and I already had a prior for selling drugs. I got caught with a half ounce. A half ounce of crack cocaine is worth about $800 on the streets, selling it. And this was my second case. So I knew I was going to go do at least about, at the lowest, 3 years. But because of Prop 47 and I think it was AB 109, that I got a 3-year split sentence.
Prop 47 passed in 2014 and reduces certain felonies to misdemeanors. 47 is seen as a step toward ending mass incarceration in California. Since then, more bills promising shorter sentences and alternatives to prison have passed. One of the more controversial ones is SB 1437. It changes California's felony murder rule and the way alleged accomplices are prosecuted. And while some say bills like these are betrayals to crime survivors like Mazzari, Monifa says she sees the need for reform.
It's crazy, our system. You you put somebody in jail, right, to teach them a lesson about hurting someone, but you're hurting that person. So we're hurting people to show that hurting people is wrong. It's sick. That don't make no sense at all. Unfortunately, I'm just in the middle of it. I'm learning this stuff. I'm new to criminal justice reform, but I've been a surviving crime my whole life. Been in the hood my whole life.
With the work that you do with both crime survivors and for folks who are impacted by the criminal legal system, like, what does justice look like for you?
Feeling safe. It's like a justice. Like after something happened to you, you start to feel safe. That feels like justice to me. For my brother, I don't know what justice looks like. Speaking in a way that will help better our communities, justice is seeing, this brother get help.
I get why people are pushing for progressive policies. As someone who lives in and reports on the hood, I've seen incarceration hurt families and ruin futures, and the streets I walk don't feel any safer. And LaDamian reminded me that a lot of people behind bars have stories of victimization that have never been addressed. I didn't see any downsides to reform until I met Josie Martinez. Her story made me think more deeply about how these new laws can cause collateral damage.
Nico really was my pride and joy. Like literally my pride and joy, and I wish so badly that I could have protected him. It breaks my heart that I couldn't keep him safe from the evil of this world. He was walking home, minding his business, and was gunned down houses away from our home in front of a church. There's no way that he could have survived that. He was shot 40 plus times, shot at 67 plus times.
Nico was murdered in 2016. The next year, in what police are calling a gang sweep, several men were arrested for a laundry list of crimes, including Nico's murder.
This is a big deal. This is a pretty important investigation. This really does highlight the changing nature of serious young offenders.
But no one's been convicted yet. And now, Josie fears that no one ever will.
Right now, the attorneys for the criminals that are being held in connection to Nico's crime and other crimes as well, they're going to be putting in a motion to dismiss based on SB 1437. It's like a slap in the face, honestly.
Which part is like a slap in the face?
Just the way that the courts are going, and I'm in shock, honestly.
Do you plan on going up to Martinez?
I'm gonna be there.
What do you think the importance of you showing up is?
Honestly, I show up not only for Nico, but for all of the victims that have been affected by these violent crimes.
There's a growing movement among crime survivors like Josie and Monifa to make sure their stories are a part of reform. And each year, they converge in Sacramento to make this message clear to lawmakers. And this year, on the 1-year anniversary of his shooting, Mazzari and his sister will be there.
So when we go to the thing on April 8th, what is it gonna be like?
The 2 days gonna go like this. They're gonna have different like people speaking that created like movements. Like, they have different events. They have like different workshops for you to get information. And then the march, we literally just walk to the state capitol. It's probably like 7 minutes, a 7-minute walk.
Back in Contra Costa County, Josie is on her way to court to hear arguments for and against dismissing Nico's murder case.